Everybody just loves chocolate, and that is why the chocolate production sector is one of the most competitive and one of the most globalized sectors within the global food industry. It also means that if something goes wrong, if chocolate products get contaminated and end up in end products for consumers, the consequences can be devastating on a global scale as well. And unfortunately, we have seen that happen in the past years. And that is why we invited Matilda Freund to conduct a webinar on a safe chocolate production with the help of hygienic design. And she is just the perfect person to do this because she has more than 30 years of experience as a former senior director global food safety at Kraft Foods and later as the vice president global food safety at Mondelez International. Matilda Freund, thank you for doing this.
Well, you're welcome. I'm very excited about talking about chocolate.
Now, Matilda, you are also the chair of a new EHEDG guideline document focused on hygienic design related to safe chocolate production within EHEDG. Can you tell us a bit about that guideline first, and then maybe something about the scope of your webinar? What can we expect?
Chocolate is very important, and also an area I think that has largely been ignored when we talk about cleaning, because I think people for a long time just thought that chocolate didn't need to be cleaned. And so really there's no guidelines around it. There's no good cleaning methods around chocolate. And I think, recent events have proven that we need to do something different with chocolate. And this is why we're forming a group to write a guideline and why we're doing the webinar, so we can introduce the topic to more people.
The webinar, what part of the chocolate production process will you cover in it?
So I will cover the process, the critical control points, and then other factors that are key to safe production. And then also the challenges that we have in chocolate. When we have an issue, what are the major challenges? And I'll just tell you in a brief, snippet that the challenges are that the equipment is not designed for cleaning, for wet cleaning. And traditionally people think of cleaning as wet. And so we'll also explore a little bit what cleaning means, and then what are the challenges with some of the equipment.
What do you mean when you say that certain areas of the chocolate production process and the impact on food safety have been neglected in the past? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. I think a number of things that, honestly, I believe that the majority of chocolate is produced safely. And, you mentioned my previous company. We made a huge amount of chocolate, and we knew the risks and we addressed them. What I would say, though, is that our supply chain as a global economy is getting more integrated. And so in the past, you might have one facility that was making chocolate for an area. And now you have companies that have maybe outsourced the procurement of chocolate liquor or even chocolate itself. And then they bring it in. And so maybe you have now fewer bigger suppliers that are supplying many companies, and then companies who are now have factories that are bigger and more complex. And so I think what has happened, and this is just my personal opinion, we haven't really moved chocolate production along to address the more complex production. And I think it's now time to start talking about doing something different, because it's mainly when there is an incident, and they're not very frequent, but when they happen, they are extremely impactful, because you have entire facilities that are now affected, where in the past they might have been, just a small portion of one facility with a smaller distribution. So to me, that's a big difference. I think chocolate production has been around a long time, but the conditions now are different than maybe 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Now, just before you mentioned the challenges related to using specific equipment for chocolate production, can you relate that to your own experience in the food industry and maybe the approach and the role of innovation of equipment in that industry?
I would say even when I worked for a large company, we had all the freedom, because if we really thought there was equipment that was safer, we would get it. No question. I think the bigger challenge is can we really think about things in a different way? Can we start to shift how we think about cleaning chocolate? And that is something that as an industry we have to do together. I don't think that there's any equipment right now, and I probably have equipment manufacturers that are going to call me all day, that is better than another one. I mean, I'm talking a big shift. We need to think through what is the way we're going to manage this, and then as an industry, do we need to make a big shift? And I don't know the answer to that. I think that this team is going to look at that and then hopefully answer that question. Is what we're doing today good enough with better design equipment, or do we need to do something different?
Well, now I'm curious. You have mentioned this team several times in this interview. The team of people, the members of the working group that will ultimately compile and agree on the contents of this new guideline. What stakeholders are represented in that working group?
So we have a really good group of people. We have a lot of major chocolate producers. We have major chocolate equipment manufacturers. We have universities that are interested in, how we do things and want to contribute because they've done research in the area. And we have cleaning companies. So I think everybody's interested in the topic, and we have actually quite a large group, which I think we'll need, because I think we're going to need to break this down into a few subgroups, because it's not going to be the same answer for how you maybe design something to stop contamination from getting in, to actually how you decide to clean certain pieces of equipment.
Matilda, is there any expertise that is still missing in your working group?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually, in the Munich seminar, I heard some interesting technologies that come out of the cereal industry on how they sense if equipment is dry, how they actually dry equipment. There was also some interesting information on biofilm formation in circulating water systems. I think they're all could be applicable to chocolate. And so people that have experience in industry or in recirculating water systems, I think we could probably use a couple of those.
Matilda Freund, President Emeritus of EHEDG, I didn't mention that before, Treasurer of EHEDG, but most importantly in this context, the presenter of this very important and relevant upcoming EHEDG Connects webinar. Thank you very much for doing this, and dear viewer, please subscribe. The subscription link is up and down there in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time, and see you in the webinar.